You're listening to Sports Radio Detroit.
Mike, do you have any aspirations? Mike, do you have any goals?
Kind of, but I mean they're kind of different. Like my goals right now are just to like pay my bills, not end up homeless, not die of a heart attack by 40. The whole being a policeman or being a Major League Baseball player, those days are gone.
I'm glad you went there instantly, because that's exactly where I'm at right now. I feel like my goals have changed so drastically different, and I'm going to express that to you here on Parsons and Slow and Alien X Radio and Sports Talk Radio. Damn it, every time.
Sports Radio Detroit, Fred. There's another goal for you to work on.
I've done that more than one time. So yeah, I feel like I'm in like this really weird limbo of like in between like what I want to do and what I'm doing and if I'm doing it, and all of a sudden I have all these like really introverted things that like don't necessarily have ever in my past reflected goals that I had like as a youth or in my young adulthood. Like it's like lame. It's like really lame.
Well, I have to say, Fred, when you asked me if I had any goals, it kind of caught me off guard, because I feel like I'm in this weird complacency where all through my 20s I was all about working 60 hours a week and having as many jobs and following up on as many opportunities as I could, and you just kind of go, and being busy is very glorified. And now that I'm in my mid-30s, I've got an okayish job. I probably could do more, and I plan on doing more, but I'm also kind of content/complacent. Sometimes I get bored. Sometimes I'm very satisfied with myself. And then it kind of messes with your head, because you're like, wait a second. I'm not supposed to be complacent. I'm not supposed to be content. I need to be like looking and thinking of what's next. And the fact that I'm not doing that kind of screws with my head a little bit.
It does screw with your head, right? Because like we've talked about this in the past. It takes you like a fucking lifetime to get to 20 years old, right?
Yeah.
Like it takes you an entire fucking life, and then it takes you a couple years to get through your 20s, and then it's been like 2 weeks, and I'm 34 now, right? So I've developed like over this time, like just like this rich fucking skill set. Like I am so capable of doing so many things, often without any struggle whatsoever. But, like, I right now lack the fucking motivation to even apply an ounce of that towards fill in the blank. Like, it is the craziest shit to me, man.
Yeah, like, what happens between your late 20s and mid-30s where you kind of just sort of, for lack of a better word, lose that piss and vinegar that you have? You kind of lose this chip on your shoulder. And I don't know if you prove stuff to yourself or you just kind of realize that there's certain things that aren't worth the frustration. But something happens to you between your late 20s and mid-30s where you kind of just chill out in a weird way.
Yeah, like not in. I mean, I don't think this is true for everyone. I think like a lot of people could be like, hey, these are my prime earning years. I'm really out there. I'm on the grind. I'm paying off my debt. I'm increasing my savings. I did some travel. I'm reading more. I'm watching less TV. Like you're like, I get it. You're hitting all the things that you're supposed to be hitting. I'm all right. Like I'm not. I know I'm not, but I say I am. I'm all right. Like what?
So are you saying you don't have any goals or they're just different?
Gosh, man, I don't know. Because like, me and the girlfriend lately, we've been talking about like doing some different things and advancing our relationship and where we're at. And then on top of that, it's like the things that used to excite me and bring me a lot of joy. March Madness, for example, we're about to talk about here in a little bit. Like that was a micro fun spring. That was a welcome to spring holiday for me for so many years, and today I took off work to have a few with the boys and watch some games, and I'm here 3.5 hours, 4 hours later, and I'm not drunk.
Yeah.
I'm not at that extreme that I used to be, and it's like where's the flavor at? Where's the spice that I used to have in my life? Because for whatever reason, fuck man, like I cannot taste it.
Yeah, well, honestly, Fred, I really see I see people's 20s as an extension of their adolescence. Like, I still consider you a kid if you're like 25 or under. And I think that kind of a lot of this maturing you think you're doing in your 20s, but really in your 20s you're just an overgrown teenager now with bills and real life responsibilities. And then I guess maybe once you kind of conquer that scary stuff, like, of course, everyone's afraid of losing their job and everyone's afraid of something bad happening to someone they love. But once you kind of get in the routine of paying your bills and not living paycheck to paycheck and having to scrape by, I think a lot of that motivation goes away, and maybe there was negative motivation to begin with.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of truth there, because I don't know. You don't necessarily recognize the reason why you do things anymore. Like, you don't. I don't know. You don't take pride and like connection to it. Like, it was really neat growing up. I'm just going to give you like a really small example. It was really neat growing up, and you'd be like, man, what's my self-care routine? How do I take care of myself every day? Not just hygienically or whatever, but like physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And you establish that after some time. And now it's just like, instead of like an exciting thing that you're figuring out, it's just a thing you have to fucking do. And it's like, where do you get to that point where you're like, oh, yeah, everything I've ever done ever is built up to this? Gulp.
Well, I mean, I think what happens is most people probably look at their life as sort of just like a straight incline, right? You always should be upgrading, you always should be progressing, but life's kind of more of like a zigzag with plateaus. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, well, you did something for a number of years, and it was kind of fun, you were kind of successful at it, but that part's over. And I think what happens is when we're in our 20s, we think what we're working towards is the rest of our life, where it might just be something temporary that maybe teaches us something, but we're not necessarily building a foundation for the future. Like, Fred, you were a titan of media and industry.
That's not true.
For a while, and yeah, you know what? You probably could have kept doing that for the rest of your life, but life events happened, and that turned out to be temporary, and it went away. And it's not like it was necessarily a waste of time, because you learned a whole lot of skills that you can apply to other things. But what you were working on back then kind of went away, and all you have is the lessons and the skills that you learned doing it, and the actual projects you were working on went away, which, like I said, doesn't necessarily mean that it was a waste. It just turned out differently than you thought. I also think in your 20s, your life changes really fast, right? You go to college, and then you graduate college, and then you get your first...
Maybe.
What's that?
You maybe graduate.
Yeah. You go... Yeah, I'm just using myself. And then,
yes.
Then you graduate, then you start your career, and you have an entry-level job, and then you advance further and further, and then kind of once you advance to a certain point... you're not switching jobs, you're not switching positions every 1.5 to 2 years. You're kind of in your same thing for a while because you become established and credible and competent. And I think that kind of slows things down a little bit because, pardon me, speaking of getting old, because you're slowing down and smelling the roses and kind of reaping what you were sowing in your 20s. And that may make it seem like life has slowed down when it's really just kind of coming to fruition, so to speak.
So, all right. So then I guess if I was gonna simmer this pot down to what is left, then Mike, what do you identify as? Like, if I'm like Mike Parsons, what do you identify as? Like, how do you now answer that question? Because I feel like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that's an easier question for me to answer. And I feel like today at 34 years old in mid-March of 2019, if you're like, Fred, what do you identify as? I think I'm probably the driver of the struggle bus when it comes to that. Like, that's the one thing I identify as.
I mean, I don't identify as the same thing to everyone, right? To Chelsea from upstairs, I'm her husband. To Bar, listening, I'm her son. At work, I'm the guy that runs the board in the afternoon and schedules weeknight and weekend programming. It's different things to Rich. I'm a best friend. To you, I'm a friend and a podcast partner. So
yes,
I don't know.
Annoyance. That's correct.
What's that?
Annoyance.
Yeah,
that is correct.
Yeah, nuisance. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you need to have one thing that defines you. I think it's fine to have different things that define you to different people.
I like that. I like that philosophy a lot.
Yeah. So, but Fred, I want to go back on something that you touched on earlier in the conversation. I know this is Sports Radio Detroit, and I'm probably the only person on this website that feels this way. But other than having the day off work, what's the appeal of watching every single game during the NCAA tournament? Like, I understand if your team is playing and you want to see them do well. I understand if there's a player like Zion Williamson that you have to watch. But I mean, and I don't have the brackets in front of me, but if you're living in New Mexico, what's the appeal of like Minnesota versus Louisville? Like watching a couple of colleges that you've never heard of or have ever seen play, and just taking your whole day off work and watching these teams.
See, I did that. So I did that today, and I turned them on. And whenever I turned them on, I did watch Minnesota, Louisville. And you're right. It didn't really reap a return for me.
Yeah.
What did was
I'm back like at the height of your March mania, so to speak.
I think maybe it was more the camaraderie or the social aspect to it, because right now I live in the desert, dog. Like and it's hard to explain the desert to people. I think a lot of people are familiar with cities,
sure,
but like this is a desert. And I went to the local Hooters knockoff after work today, and I'm with a couple guys I work with, and they're both great dudes, and a couple members of the gym that I know a little bit, and we're watching the games, and the New Mexico State game is really good. Like, it's a 1-point game. It's coming down to the end. But, like, I'm not even watching the games the way I used to. Like, I'm there, but I have my Instagram up filming the crowd for their reaction. In case, like, they hit the big shot, then I'll have that to get internet points. And, like, I've never been internet points guy, so I'm guessing the way that I'm absorbing this is changed very drastically, and it's changed very drastically unbeknownst to me. Like, I didn't realize that the reason I was involved in this wasn't for my bracket or wasn't for the actual experience of watching the games, because I really low-key don't care that Marquette got upset today by Murray State. That doesn't really matter to me. But what matters to me is the fellowship and camaraderie. And for real, I don't have it here. Like, I just, it's not a thing. So I don't think next year I would do this thing. Tomorrow, Friday, I won't do this. You know what I mean? Because it's like, return's just not there for me.
Yes, and I could see that, because when it comes to socializing, I'm not really a activity-oriented person. Like, there's people he has to hang out, and you're like, hey, a couple of us are going to hang out this weekend. What do you want to come along? And they'll say, sure, what are you doing? And if they don't want to do the activity, they'll say no. I'm the opposite. I'm kind of like, I don't really care what we're doing. If it's a group of people I like, that's fine. So, look, if 4 or 5 people I really liked hanging out with said, we're going to go watch Prairie View take on Pennsylvania A&M in the play-in game of the NCAA tournament, have some beers, sure, great, okay, I'm going to hang out with you guys and watch the game in the background.
Right.
And it does get excited when a Cinderella makes a deep run, because, and obviously I think that's probably my favorite part of March Madness as someone who isn't a big fan, and I think it's the most mainstream favorite thing about the NCAA tournament. But yeah, I just to me, I don't know, man, it just always bummed me out. And I think a big part of it is that where I live in Michigan, March is supposed to be spring, but it's still winter. So I kind of feel like I always felt like the NCAA championship game was the first sign of spring. And so the tournament has always been something that I just always had to get through. But my favorite thing about the tournament, Fred, is and this is a radio nerd thing. Coming up in college radio, you'll get these mid-level teams that make the tournament by winning, their conference championship. And I love watching the top plays on ESPN during the conference championships or the playoff games where these smaller schools get in. And you have these unpolished freshmen just doing their best to get their voices on ESPN, these announcers. And they always come up with some tired Cinderella metaphor. And you just listen to it and you just kind of cringe, but you also kind of like it because, this is exciting for these kids. But, when I was in college, Fred, the sportscasters at the college radio station, it's almost like they wrote down a whole bunch of Cinderella metaphors so that they could get on SportsCenter. Like we were the Golden Grizzlies and Oakland University, and they were the number 1 seed in the tournament. And when they won the tournament, the sportscaster said, Cinderella's going to be a Golden Grizzly. Well, they weren't really Cinderella. They were the 1 seed, but he had to come up with the Cinderella metaphor to get on SportsCenter.
Well, let's be honest though, Mike. It's not like I've been a sports broadcaster. I've broadcast hundreds of games, right? Like I'm not new to that world, and it's not an elitist group as far as like intelligence goes. Like it's a group of people who speak loudly, clearly, and passionately, and they're not the brightest bulbs in the box. I'll give you an example. My friend Adam Young broadcasts for New Mexico State. He broadcasts women's basketball. Anyways, for about 1 million years, No, not about 1 million. So about 1 million years ago, he started this little cheat sheet, and it's on the internet. It's used by basically everyone, and it identifies all the different parts of the court, and it has the different names you can call those parts of the court. Literally everyone in the industry uses it. It was started by one guy, and like every so often, someone will put like an improvised one, right? Somebody will put like whatever on it, and then that one is now circulated. So it's like these guys aren't the most creative, clever guys in the world. They're guys that are there to tell a story and do it in a way that they know that it wants to be heard. Like you can't introduce a new Cinderella story, and I don't mean like this new team is the new Cinderella story. I mean like whatever is another version of fucking Cinderella, and I don't know what that is because I'm not articulate because I'm a sports broadcaster.
Yeah, so it's like one of these things that instead of saying shooting from the top of the key, you say from downtown or from the
well, that's
corners.
Exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And you literally just look down and pick one, and that way you don't sound like here we are on the baseline. It's west side end of the court under the basket.
I've never known that.
Oh, it's a real thing. It's absolutely it's used like all the like Marv Albert uses it all the way down to like high school. Just Google it. It exists and it's out there and it's used regularly. And I'll tell you what's neat about that. And these kids that you just talked about that are doing these sound bites and trying to get on the social media. We're at a day and age now, because we're old men now, Mike, where the way that it's done, like publicity-wise and exposure-wise, the kids that are coming up doing it, they know exactly what needs to be done to get it done right? It's not like whenever we were growing up and we were learning it. Like, we were learning all this new stuff and kind of blazing the way for it. And there was a lot of foul-ups and a lot of people not be able to hit it on the head necessarily. But like the freshman kid now at University of whatever, like, he's only known this life. The way it's being delivered right now, he's only been exposed to.
Right.
So he knows exactly what needs to be provided. He knows exactly how to and the agent that he has now that's like, hey, say this and make sure you show this shoe and make sure you're dialed in this way. That guy didn't have that job 25 years ago or whatever it was when Carmelo Anthony was coming up doing the same thing. So it's like these dudes, although looking a fool and being young and dumb and excited, like, very much coached, very much put in the right spot. And this also translates, I think, even to a bigger point, which is like, these are the people that are just now so young that they don't remember or had exposure to how it was before, right? And maybe this is where you and I and people of our age group staying unique, where it's like we had some exposure to like a social life without social media, and we had some exposure to like communication without text, and we had some, and you could keep filling in the blanks there, but like the kids slightly younger than us, no, not necessarily, and like the dudes slightly older than us, maybe they're not able to make that connection as strongly as our generation has been able to. So you have like this weird balance between like this 20-year-olds to 45-year-olds where like not everyone is playing with the same set of skills, and it's really different to me.
Now, Fred, you've broadcasted a lot of indoor soccer.
Yes.
How many different partners have you had? Because you do play-by-play, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously I'm versatile and talented enough to do both.
Right.
And by both, I mean play-by-play and color analysis. Primarily 2 guys, but really maybe 6 or 7, maybe.
Okay, and including yourself, what percentage of broadcasters that you've worked with or that you are have used the up top where mama keeps the cookies line? I feel like
100.
Like, yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like every sport with a net, like a goal tie-in. Mm-hmm. There's always a broadcaster that drops that. It's usually pretty early. Where they're trying to impress people. But I feel like if you go through any broadcaster's tape from the beginning of their career to now, 99.99% of them has used the up top where mama keeps the cookies, or top shelf where mama keeps the cookies.
Yeah, no, I have definitely used it. It's been used by like those I've been in association with. I don't know if I've watched a single broadcast. And I broadcast at the MASL, which is the highest level of indoor soccer, and these are the highest level broadcasters, and they all do the exact same thing. It's all the exact same calls. I have a little flavor. If you've ever been so fortunate to hear me call a game, I theme every game. Oh. So like every game I do is I also try to include like the entire storyline to maybe like a popular movie, or I try to like include like fun facts about whatever holiday or type of the year on. So I'll give you an example. I recently did a game for the New Mexico Runners 2 weeks ago, and throughout the course of the game, I'm trying to give you the entire synopsis to Mighty Ducks 2.
What?
So as we go through it, I'm carrying the game itself with what I know is a bangers of a storyline of a group of kids from Minnesota that have to partner with some of the best junior hockey athletes around the country to battle against hated Iceland.
So, I mean, do you use the players on the field that you're calling as the characters, like the coach of the New Mexico Roadrunners? Like you say, yeah, so Coach Smith got a DUI and he was court ordered to coach this team for probation. Or, I mean, how do you work in a storyline like that? I would feel like you would probably use the players on the field as the characters from the movie.
I wouldn't say they're characters per se. I would say it's jumping off points. So I'll just give you an example. Let's say it's a big save by the goalie, right? Well, now I have a chance to talk about Julie the Cat Gaffney, who's from Maine, and just how excited I am for it. The same way that, and then I'll roll from there. And it's really good. It's really complex, but it's a way not just to entertain myself, but to entertain the viewer. As you always see, like those weathermen that like work in like whatever's going on in the news. It's the same kind of concept, and often people pick up on it because I'm not hiding it by any means, but it's I don't know, it's fun for me. I have a lot of fun doing it.
It's art is what it is.
Aw, thank you.
But you were talking earlier about these kids and how they kind of have never known a life outside of the social media world, and it's a tire take, obviously, that social media and all of that has changed the way a lot of kids have grown up. But I do have to say, Fred, a lot of times when I see a viral video featuring a kid, whether it's like a family doing some kind of funny rap, or it's like a parent disciplining their kid and putting it on social media for everyone to see, or like whether it's just a kid singing a sweet song with her dad, there's always something in the back of my mind saying, okay, is this organic, or is this like like a 21st century stage parent pushing their kids to do something they don't want to do. And
have you been to a fucking wedding reception in the last 10 years?
Oh my God.
Like ever since Chris Brown put out or ever since the Chris Brown song Wedding Aisle fucking featured on The Office deal.
Yeah.
Like that, everyone's goal is, hey, my dad's home from the army, YouTube points. Hey, I'm getting married, YouTube points. Hey, I'm going to jump over this. Maybe I make it, maybe I don't, YouTube points. Like
and look, it's probably because I'm old man, get off my lawn here. I just don't understand putting every big moment in your life up on YouTube for everyone to see. But this week, Fred, a woman in Arizona who operated a popular YouTube channel, and it doesn't say who she is, which that's fine. I don't want to promote her anyway.
Terrorist attacker 1221.
Mrs. ISIS 420 some 41. She was arrested for abusing her 7 children, pepper spraying them when they didn't perform properly on YouTube, and locking them in closets without access to a bathroom when they were not performing. And I have to say, Fred, I'm not surprised at these allegations. I'm surprised it hasn't happened earlier and more often. I mean, like I said, anytime I see a kid singing a song with their dad or something, I'm just thinking to myself, how many takes has this taken, and does this kid really want to be there?
I'm going to take it to Instagram real quick, okay?
Okay.
The other day I'm going through Instagram, and I don't follow like Instagram tots. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean?
Weird.
I don't do it. But if you click on one of them, everyone follows them. Like they regularly have 1 million followers. And it's like, and I'll just give you an example. It's like, hey guys, at 4 p.m. I'm going to be trying on denim shorts. Tune in. Like, well, like you're a hooker. Like what you're doing is you're selling like viewing of your body for followers but I get how it translates to money, because if you get X amount of followers, then you get endorsements, then you get to the stuff, and that's a real thing, right? So anyway, so I kind of feel there's an exact similar audience, but with kids and with families, and it's for, and I'm going to skew real young here. It's where like I'm over at my cousin's today because this local eatery, this donut place, is doing a Down syndrome fundraiser, so I go and grab some donuts, and I run over to her house, and we're having donuts, and on the TV is an adult's hands. It's just a camera over a bathtub, and it's adults' hands, and they're playing with like submersible bathtub toys underneath the water, like left and right, like doing figure eights and stuff, to like a shitty like soundtrack of like non-copyrighted music. And I know these are adults' hands. Like, this is not a child, but like her kid is glued to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, her kid is on it, and I'm like, I get it. I totally get it. This is a legitimate money-making deal. And like, because it's a legitimate money-making deal, are you now treating your kids as employees? Are you disciplining your kids, and like your home is now a workplace? Like, this is, it's weird and dark.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. And look, when I was a kid, I had a camcorder. Me and my siblings liked making funny videos and watching them back. So if that's all it is, and you're helping your kid do that, and it's fun, and it's no pressure, and you're not sitting there scripting everything out and making them do a whole bunch of different takes, you're just having fun with your kids, that's fine. God bless. But especially these families, like the Christmas Jammies family. I don't know anything about that family, but I'm watching this and I'm like, this is pretty slickly produced, and I'm guessing that this wasn't done in an hour. This was probably a full 8 to 10 hour workday. I mean, look, I think it's weird. I think it's weird anyway to make money off your kid. I think whether it's on YouTube or getting your kid involved in acting, I think that there's a lot of risk in that, and there's certain things that could be borderline abusive. So I always thought that was weird anyway. But the weirdest thing to me, Fred, is the ones where Like there was that one video of that dad whose daughter was bullying kids on the bus. So what he did is he made her walk to school, and he followed behind her in the car.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, shamed her. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, look, yes, I applaud you for taking care of this, but where do you think that this kid learned bullying from if her dad's bullying her online? And look, Fred, I was a little shit when I was a kid, and my parents did their job. When they saw I was being a little shit, they corrected the behavior. But they would have, even if social media was around, they would never have posted it online because your job is to make your kid a decent member of society. Your job isn't to score points online. And I think back to times when I got in trouble when I was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and what a tantrum I threw and how it wasn't my best look. And I can only just imagine how damaging it would be if those tantrums or me acting like a brat were videotaped and posted online, not only forever, but seen by a million people. I think you're doing the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do as a parent.
See, I don't think it's like the detriment, though, that you think it is. Like, because it's so... everyone's jumping off a bridge, so it's okay to jump off a bridge.
You're saying, like, maybe the kids, sort of in this new world, kind of weirdly, in a warped way, like appreciate their parents making them famous by any means necessary.
Yeah, because the world is a billion times different than it was whenever, I mean, for real, fucking 4 years ago.
Sure.
Because, and I'll just give you an example, and this is the one I always use because this is the most low-key of all the weird shit, but I know we're going to talk about Donald Trump after the break, right?
What else is new?
Yeah, duh. So last November, right, he goes to France, and he wipes the dandruff off the French president, and, it's pretty fucking insulting, right? And,
yeah.
There's a time when that would have literally defined a presidency.
Right.
Like the disrespect, like George Bush throwing up in Japan on the Japanese, that. But that is just like a fucking Wednesday morning for Donald Trump. That's not even a Wednesday. That's a Wednesday after he decides to work that 1 hour before he eats lunch. And that's where we're at, right? Where it's like everything has to be so entertaining all the time, and everything has to be so really new as well, because content is being produced by so many outlets and so many different avenues from so many different angles.
You have to step it up.
You have to step it up, and unlike when me and you were growing up, because kids these days, they don't have to buy their music like we had to buy our music. They don't have to buy their movies. They don't, literally all the best stuff that exists is free. It is free to them, and it is ready to them all the time, and it's brand new tomorrow and the day after. So you just gotta try to go through the top. And if you don't make it through the top, then you're on the huge ass list of people who didn't make it through the top, and you're no different still there. So I get it. I totally get the whole dynamic. Internet points translate to real money, so I understand why a crazy ass. Where'd you say she was from? Phoenix?
Yes.
Yeah, a crazy ass suburban Phoenix mom who's seen a million hours of examples of how this shit becomes successful. Whenever she overreacts and does crazy shit and ends up in jail, because overreacting and doing crazy shit is not that crazy when everyone's doing it.
It's Parsons and Slow, alienxradio.com, sportsradiodetroit.com.
Hi, this is Jason Pinkett from Pucking Around and Spinning the Wheels on Sports Radio Detroit. Check us out every Sunday over on the SRD Hockey feed on Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher. That's SRD Hockey in your search bar. New episodes every week.
Looking to reach new potential customers? SRD can help. We work with any size business and budget. Plus, our amazing listener base grows every day. For more information on how your business can advertise with us, feel free to send us an email at sportsradiodet@gmail.com. That's sportsradiodet@gmail.com. SRD, Detroit's podcasting home. All right, Fred, I know that before the break we teased the McCain versus Trump Twitter beef, and I got to be honest. Normally, I try not to talk about things that Donald Trump tweets about because I just can't pay attention to that, and I just can't live in that state of agitation. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But you actually touched on something before the break, talking about how there's so much content out there, and everything has to be new, everything has to be shocking, everything has to kind of one up the last thing to make any noise in the crowded field. And I believe it was last Friday morning, it was afternoon in Christchurch, New Zealand. You had that guy, that terrorist, walk into those 2 mosques and kill 50 people with an automatic weapon, and he targeted the Muslim community, and he went in there with the intention to do as much damage as he could, and he did, which is terrible and sickening and shocking all on its own. But the weirdest part to me was that YouTube and Facebook could not keep up with all the videos being reposted of this massacre, because I guess the gunman Facebook lived it. And, Facebook and YouTube worked as quickly as they could to take the video down, but there were so many people that were, posting copies of it or posting, I don't know if they're called mirrors or something, but, these online, I don't know if they're hackers, but they're ne'er-do-wells, they're 4chaners. They know how to take a video that's taken down and replicate it. And it was replicated so many times, and this murder was seen by millions of people. And, the vast majority of these people would never commit a murder. They either were just getting some weird, sick satisfaction fantasizing about doing it, or it's the car crash mentality. But I just don't understand this new fascination with watching murders online.
Well, I don't think it's not new, right? Like Faces of Death was a thing when we were kids, right?
That's true. I guess it's just becoming more mainstream and accessible.
Well, I mean, there's I don't think it's a new infatuation, but I think it's far more intense than what is there. And I think that's true for so many things. Like the obvious example is porn, right? Like when me and you were growing up, like we had to get a porno magazine from a homeless guy outside of a liquor store, and then we also had to buy a Sports Illustrated so we could put a different cover over it. And if you're like me, you thought having sex as a kid was just like holding a girl's boobie because you didn't really know.
Right,
you
and
know?
then there's a baby, yeah.
Yeah, but now kids these days, like they can literally Google the weirdest sentence ever heard on Pornhub and not only get that thing happening, but also in the comments get like a bunch of advice on how to make it happen. So like it's a whole different world as far as how you consume. And I know Reddit late last week suspended r/watch people die, which was kind of a controversial website anyways.
Yeah.
Or subreddit, but like
and Reddit's one of my favorite websites, but sometimes when I hear of subreddits that were active and have been taken down, I'm kind of disappointed in them for allowing it to exist in the first place.
Oh God! See, and I'm disappointed that it comes down because it's not for me to say like what should or should not. But yeah,
I have no problem saying it.
Yeah, I have a problem saying you cannot consume this content or whatever. But if it is like if it's illegal activities or whatever, yeah, that sucks. I mean, you shouldn't be able to do that. But I have a personal story, right? So, do you remember I guess it would have been 2003, Saddam Hussein? Do you remember that fella?
Yes, actually, and I was going to bring this up, but I want to hear your story first.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad you're there. So anyway, so he is killed. He is killed by the United States government. And well, hold on, strike that, reverse it. Captured by, but then put to death in sorry. So anyways, so this happens, and I want to see the video. I'm like super mad at Saddam Hussein because remember 9/11?
Sure.
Yeah, well, so like the Bush told me that Saddam Hussein did that, and I was so young that I didn't question. Yeah, so anyways, I remember like exhausting myself looking to try to find this thing, and and eventually coming across it, on a website that was translated from Russian to Polish to Italian or whatever, and I found it and I watched it, and he was dead, and I thought, oh, that's okay, that's the end of that story, and then. Today, if you want to find Mosque Massacre or you want to find whatever's going on, and by the way, that's a terrible buzz name, right? That sounds very much like a Nancy Grace way to cover this thing, right? But anyways,
but it is what it was.
It is what it was. You literally just click it and then click videos.
Yeah.
And there it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck. That takes no effort whatsoever. Like you got it.
Yeah, and you know what? I had a different reaction to the Saddam Hussein video. I actually, when people wanted to watch it, I actually understood why people wanted to watch it. You know, this was an evil man. He was number one enemy of the United States. Even if he had nothing to do with 9/11, he still did a bunch of terrible things. But I couldn't bring myself to watch it. I'm just like, you know, as much as this guy deserves it, I just can't watch a video of somebody dying. But I can understand if he was a genocidal madman. I could understand people wanting to see it, maybe as some sort of closure. Same thing if there was a Bin Laden murder video. You know, if one of your family members was killed in Saddam Hussein's genocide, or he was killed during the Iraq War, or they died in 9/11, I could see that as closure and getting your pound of flesh. I can actually see that. Even though it wasn't for me personally, I can understand why people would want to see it. But that's not what it is anymore, like you said, Fred. It's not watching bad people die. It's watching everyday innocent people just trying to live their lives die. Whether, you know, it was these 50 people in those 2 mosques out in Christchurch, New Zealand, or it was that TV reporter who was murdered live on the air. People watch that over and over and over. And I think that's a dangerous path to go down because, you know, it desensitizes us. And like I said, I think the vast majority of people who watch this, they're never going to go out and commit a murder, but they definitely are desensitizing themselves to the value of human life. Well,
I mean, to harken back to me talking about that Instagram stuff and those, you know, weird parents creating videos for kids and stuff, like there right now is, and this is unarguable, the best content available ever. Like this second, if I wanted to hang up this podcast with you, I could go watch the greatest story ever told about dragons ever right now, from the beginning to the end, without doing nothing else in my life. I can right now go watch a 4-hour-long documentary on Michael Jackson licking the beehole of babies. Like I can right now, and I'll keep going. Like I could, and it's all literally the best. But like for whatever reason, and I think it's accessibility, people want to absorb fucking garbage.
Right.
They want to absorb Instagram model trying on shorts, and they want to absorb fucking murders, and they want to, because it's in your hand, dog. Like no one watches TV on their TV anymore, right? Like it's in your hand, and because it's right there, it's I might as well.
Yeah.
Like I got 10 minutes to kill on the bus. Like
right.
Well,
and the thing is, no one can, like you said earlier, nobody can be bored for 10 minutes. So if you have any time in your day to fill with anything, you're looking down at your screen for 5 seconds of stimulation.
Well, and I notice how different it is now. Like me and the girlfriend are literally watching a movie the other night, and in the movie there's a scene where these 2 dudes walk into a locker room, and there's a guy waiting for them in the locker room, and he's just sitting there like crisscross applesauce waiting, and I'm like, that's not realistic. like he'd be on his phone right now,
right?
Like
yeah. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you knew because you wait naked for people crisscross applesauce in the locker room.
No, the dude is just straight up sitting on a bench waiting. Just
yeah.
I'm like I know this is going to sound extreme, but this is not a legitimate thing.
Yeah.
Like people don't do this, and I know, and like her reaction was, well, not everyone's glued to their phone. Yes, everyone is glued to their phone.
Yeah, that is true. Everyone is glued to their phone, even the people who complain about everyone being glued to their phone, like us. But real quick, Fred, another interesting story came out. You know, within days of this massacre happening, New Zealand's prime minister worked with the government to outlaw assault rifles in New Zealand.
Within one day. It was one day,
right.
Mike.
And, you know.
It worked on the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you've been seeing all the memes saying this is what a real leader looks like. But I think this is going to be interesting. This is going to be a very interesting thing for the United States to see because, you know, I had a whole bunch of facts and figures. You know, in the United States, per 100 person, there's 120 guns. So that means that every person in the United States could have a gun, and some could have 2. But New Zealand, for every 100 people, 30 of them have guns, which to me sounds like a pretty decent, well-armed populace. You
know what every New Zealander has?
What's that?
Eggs.
Do they?
Did you see that egg boy thing, or did I just go?
Oh yeah, right. Where he he goes up to that jerkwad representative blaming Muslims for it, and he cracks an egg on his face.
Literally puts up. Hey, here we go. Puts up his phone to record it. Rears back. It just plants the thing on the back of the the fucking senator or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like also, I'm not trying to distract you. I'm so sorry. Did you watch the video of the kid get tackled? Like all these hard on, super weird right wing like security ish guys, and they're just like, yeah. And I'm like, this is really perverted.
Yeah.
This is really gross. They love this.
Yeah.
They fucking love it. It was so weird to me.
But New Zealand has a very well-armed populace, and but not as well-armed as the United States. And the United States, I looked up the numbers really quick. The United States, for every 100,000 people, there's 4 gun homicides. In New Zealand, for every 100,000 people, there's 0.05 gun homicides. So I think those of us in the United States who, we every time there's a shooting here in the United States, people talk about banning assault weapons. Let's see what happens in New Zealand. Let's see what happens where they're a very well-armed but peaceful populace where there's very little gun violence. Let's see if that stays the same or decreases, or if the banning of certain weapons is going to lead all hell to break loose, like the super pro-gun people here in the United States say. I think it'll be a very interesting case study. And if you go 5 to 10 years, Fred, and there's this assault weapon ban and gun violence goes up dramatically because the bad guys with the guns are no longer afraid that there's a good guy there with an assault weapon, then you can make the point that gun laws don't work. But if it stays the same, maybe increases slightly or goes down, maybe that's something the United States could look into.
I'm so apprehensive of correlation between statistics as far as per capita statistics. That always is weird to me, right? Because what do we got here in America? 350 million people, yes. Legal or not? And what do they got in New Zealand? 35 people?
It's much smaller. Well, that's why I looked at per capita, not necessarily the number.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. And I'm even with that on per capita because it's I bet you there's the exact same percent-ish of people with autism and people I get it. I mean, it's all the same to me. But I don't know of those. And we were just talking about the viewing the murder video online. I don't know how many of those views were in New Zealand or how many were in America or how many were in France or whatever. I would assume a majority of them were in New Zealand. Maybe that's a wrong assumption, but I feel like that's where the most interest should be. So I think the reaction to this is going to very much be, in my opinion, it's very much going to be muted there specifically because when you're the one who experiences it, you're the one who's real messed up with it. I don't think you're going to be able to pull any sort of results from this because just inherently you're going to be I don't know, in a bogus spot, as a culture.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's going to use it, but I think that at least it's something you could look into when you're having a debate, but time will tell. Real quick, Fred, before we move on to our palate cleanser here. Like I said, on this show, I try to be fair when it comes to criticizing the President of the United States, and usually that entails not really caring about what he spouts off about on Twitter. Because, number one, I don't really care. Number two, I think there's too much coverage when he says something stupid on Twitter. I think it's giving him exactly what he wants. And I really didn't even pay much attention when late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, he went on some unhinged Twitter tirade complaining about John McCain, who's been dead for 7 months. It's okay, whatever. This blowhard is just he's just blowing hot air. But then, of course, Meghan McCain, his daughter, took exception to this, and she went on The View and said that Donald Trump will never be a great man, which, to me, that's a tame response if someone gets on Twitter and starts popping off about my dad who's been dead for 7 months. But, Fred, I cannot believe some of my pro-Trump friends coming out and blasting Meghan McCain for doing this. You know, they play this hypocrisy game like, oh, well, you know what? Your dad did some bad things, so, how dare you question our dear leader when he does something uncouth and crass by anyone's standards. I mean, what would these people do if some unhinged online bully just started talking trash about your dad who died 7 years ago? It's not like John McCain started this again. It's just that Donald Trump, for some reason, was thinking of John McCain, living rent-free in his head again, decided to pop off, and Meghan McCain responded the same way anyone would respond, and probably with a lot more class than I would have.
I think if I were to start the disenchanted voice of John McCain Twitter and follow the president, do you think I could trick him into thinking that I'm actually the ghost of John McCain?
Tweet him and say you'll be visiting him with 2 other ghosts to teach him the real meaning of Christmas.
I'm about to get real dark with you, okay?
All right, let's hear.
The support base for Donald Trump, the individual that is like really apathetic to Donald Trump, like the full-on embrace, right? And I don't mean like Republicans who are now playing the game. I'm talking about like
right, or people who like his policies.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the people who fucking sweat him, okay? At least in my adult life, I've never seen that group of people represented anywhere. I've never in my adult life seen people who claim to be pro-Nazi or claim to be pro-Klan or want to be openly racist or want to be openly bigoted represented literally at all in any facet of life. They don't have TV characters. They don't have like positive books. They don't have political representation. They don't have a voice or a signal or an appearance, period. They do now, and it's Donald fucking Trump. And because they have that, every so often he has to rally them, right? Like he has to fire them back up about something. And in my opinion, and I'm about to be on my high horse, there is simpler people, okay? So he can hit them with simpler talking points. This is why his sound bites work so well, because they're short and a short syllable and are delivered in a way that can be regurgitated. Make America great again. Like that's why and that's why he's like that. So if he wants to every so often go to the well and making fun of this minority group Mexicans or this minority group women or this arch nemesis that he didn't beat him, he died. Like if he wants to, like, it really rallies those people.
Yeah,
like I totally get it. It makes sense to me. It's perverse and fucking gross.
Yeah, and it's just so odd. It's just so odd to see. Number one, I think the fact that Donald Trump is still complaining about John McCain 7 years after his death shows that he's the ultimate snowflake, okay?
Yeah.
His people love to call people snowflake, but he's the ultimate thin-skinned individual. And, you know, if anyone said anything, well, case in point, Donald Trump comes out and, you know, he's all guns blazing at John McCain when Meghan McCain does a much more tame by comparison retort. They get all butthurt. And now what they're doing is they're going back and trying to dig up dirt on John McCain and Meghan McCain to justify Donald Trump hate tweeting him from his toilet in the middle of the night.
I'm not one to speak ill of the dead unless it's Michael Jackson.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, Fred, you know, last week we talked about that Finding Neverland documentary and how it was so disturbing. And you gave me some homework, Fred. You said...
Leaving Neverland, right?
What'd I say?
Finding Neverland. Yeah. That's actually a hit Broadway. That's a hit Broadway play.
Oh, well, my apologies to the Broadway play then.
It's really good. I saw it.
Good. But as a palate cleanser, you gave me some homework. You told me to watch the Mr. Rogers documentary.
I did.
And it'd be a complete 180, and it would just rinse all those bad thoughts out of my head. So
okay, so Won't You Be My Neighbor, right? Is that the name of it?
Yes. That's not the Tom Hanks movie. That's the HBO documentary, correct?
Yeah. Or maybe that's not the name, but you go to HBO, find the documentary. You did that, and go.
Well, I got to say, this world kind of had me cynical, because for the first 5 minutes I'm watching this, and I'm like, What's your angle here, Mr. Rogers? Okay, what's the interest in the children? You know, why do you care so much? But, then eventually he kind of wins you over. I wasn't necessarily – the only thing I was disappointed in is when he told his gay mailman or policeman friend he couldn't go to the gay bar anymore if he wanted to stay on the show. Because really the rest of the movie painted this portrait of this infallible man who just gave a shit. He just cared so much about kids that he just wanted to talk to them on an adult level. He wanted to explain the scary things in the world and help them make sense out of it. And it seemed like he did it with the purest of intentions. And he broke down a lot of barriers. Was that not Mr. McFeely, but the African-American officer, back in the 60s when white people didn't want to share a swimming pool with the black person, he was on TV sharing, soaking his feet in a pool with a black officer. And they made him a police officer because it broke the stereotype not only of law enforcement but of African Americans at the time. You're right, Fred. It was a very good palate cleanser, and I think everyone who watches it is sad because you feel like there's not people like that in the world anymore. And
oh gosh, I think there is though.
I do too. They're just not on TV.
Yeah, because production wise and presentation wise, there's nothing more garbage than Mr. Rogers. It was done poorly. It looked like shit. You could tell the budget was volunteers.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's long periods of silence. Which were by design because Mr. Rogers understood that kids could be bored for a goddamn minute and still be okay. But yeah, no, it was. I thought it was like HBO always does, and I always talk about the Andre the Giant's one. There's a couple of them that are really good documentaries. But yeah, no, I thought it knocked it out of the park. I'm glad you took it in, Mike. I'm glad you were able to go back in time a little bit and look at that.
Now, Fred, there was a little redemption. You know how I said I was kind of disappointed that Mr. Rogers told his gay officer friend that he couldn't go to that gay bar anymore to be kicked off the show.
I couldn't tell. So the little bit of confusing part here is the gay part, real life. The officer part, acting.
Right.
The gay bar, real life. So he told his actual gay friend that he could not go to the gay bar because he would lose his job as a fake police officer on the show.
Correct.
Okay, and the police officer, not gay.
Right. The police officer on the show is straight, but the actor who played him is gay. He went to a well-known gay bar, and Mr. Rogers says, look, you can't get caught in that gay bar. If you get caught in the gay bar, you're off the show as a straight police officer, which, like I said, disappointed me a little bit. But at the end, when they were talking about his death, spoiler alert, Mr. Rogers dies, they say that the Westboro Baptist Church was protesting his funeral because Mr. Rogers was tolerant of gay people. So there's kind of some redemption in that respect for me.
Well, and Mr. Rogers likes you just the way you are.
Yeah, right. And all he did, and my favorite were the cutaways of Fox News talking about how Mr. Rogers is raising a generation of spoiled, entitled brats. Look, there's some kids out there, Fred, who get that positive reinforcement at home, and it's great. But there's others that don't. And the only positive reinforcement, the only self-esteem they ever got was from this kindly old man on TV. And I don't know, he seemed to really have an understanding of child psychology. Like there was that point where that sad puppet was talking about how stupid he was, and then the lady, I forgot her name, Mrs. Dolores, I don't remember her name, but they were doing this duet, and she was saying, oh, I like you the way you are, and he was saying, like, he was still kind of down on himself, and they didn't really drown each other out. They kind of worked in harmony. I thought that was smart because that's how everyone feels. Everyone has the confidence that they got that self-doubt, and you got to learn how to make them coexist. And I thought that was very smart. It's just one example of how Mr. Rogers seemed to understand kids more so than just about anyone on the planet.
I'm glad you could go to the well of your childhood on that. Mike, I know we got to go quickly. Did you check your time hop this week?
I did not know.
Okay, because if you do and it was associated with your MySpace, it's gone. 12 years of MySpace just up and deleted.
Which is good, because one of the shady things about MySpace is any music that was uploaded to MySpace in the terms and conditions says that it was property of News Corp. So essentially what you were doing was giving your music to Rupert Murdoch for free to do whatever he wanted to do. So this sounds like a victory for those who had their music stolen by News Corp.
My profile song was Butthole Surfers.
I don't mind the sun sometime. That one.
Good job, everyone. GG.
Thanks for listening, Paul's Bye.